Okay, good morning, Year 5. Today we're going to be looking at relative clauses. Now there are two different types of relative clauses, ones which are essential or non-essential. The ones that we are going to be looking at today are non-essential, and they are embedded into the sentence. So they come in the middle of a sentence. Now although we don't necessarily need these clauses, they do add a bit of extra detail to describe the nouns in a sentence. So in order to use an embedded relative clause, we need to start with a main clause and add in a clause using a relative pronoun. So the relative clause must follow the noun. So if we look at this sentence here, my sister works in an office. My sister is the noun in this sentence, so we know that our embedded relative clause has to come after that word. So my sister, comma, who has blonde hair, works in an office. You'll also notice that I've included punctuation on either side of the relative clause. So in this case I've used commas to embed the clause, but we could also use brackets or dashes. In addition, a relative clause must include a relative pronoun. Now you'll see on the right a list of relative pronouns that we would use when we are writing embedded relative clauses, when we are using relative clauses. So my next example, Hampton Court is an enormous palace. So Hampton Court is our noun, so we know that our relative clause comes after the noun. Hampton Court, where Henry VIII lived, is an enormous palace. So I'm just going to put this in red so we can see that that's our embedded relative clause. Now you'll notice that I've again included the correct punctuation to embed our relative clause, and I've included a relative pronoun, where, and this comes after the noun it is describing. And although we don't need it, it does provide us with some extra detail. Here are two more sentences for you to have a go at. So for you to include some relative clauses in the sentences. Mr. James gave an assembly on inclusion yesterday. The whiteboard is broken at the moment. So in this sentence, Mr. James is our noun, and in this sentence, the whiteboard is our noun. So you need to remember a few important things. Our relative clause comes after our nouns, and you also need to include your relative pronouns. Right, I want you to pause the video, and when you've finished putting in some embedded relative clauses into these sentences, press play. Did you remember your relative pronoun? Did you remember the correct punctuation? Right, so now we're going to do another activity. You'll see we have 3 pictures on the screen. We're going to choose a noun to describe in the pictures and then add some extra detail, extra description using a relative clause. So here we've got a garden of roses. So I'm going to write a main clause first. So the roses towered over the path, but I want to include some extra detail with an embedded relative clause. So the roses, comma, which were bright red, towered over the path. Now I want you to have a go using an embedded relative clause to add some extra detail for these 2 pictures here. Pause the video, and when you're ready, when you've finished, press play. So on the school website we have put some extra activities for you to get some extra practice writing your embedded relative clauses. So bronze, complete cheeseburger activities 1 and 2. Silver, describe your family using relative clauses. And gold, complete silver and include semicolons and colons for a list. Thank you very much.